We are live. I'm just rocking it solo this week. Spencer is feeling a little bit under the weather, so he's going to skip this weekend. I figured I'd go solo, wanted to get an episode out, get some content out for you guys and be consistent, As I've said, I've added some additions to the stream. Let me know if the stream's kind of wonky. Hopefully I don't disconnect here. I have a couple tabs open that I normally don't stream with any tabs open because it totally just the stream for some reason. So, but we got the TV, we got the boys bet ball. Hopefully, this is all good to go. It doesn't go inactive on me. Got tickers going in the background, and yeah, got pretty much the crib kind of, at least the living room space. I have a couple pictures I need to hang up here and there. There's I talked about the Dirk LED jersey eventually I'm going to get, but doing well. Honestly, this week has been really good. So far in the week, as far as myself personally, I have had positive days every single day except for, I believe, Sunday. I'm sorry. And I would have been positive. Honestly, the NFL has been okay for me. There's been several weeks where I've won, several weeks where I've lost. I think definitely the weeks that I've lost, I've bet on the Cowboys, and they come up short for me. And that's kind of what got me. I was positive for the day, and then I was just looking at the line. I was going to watch the Sunday night football game. It's the Vikings at the Cowboys, playing in Arlington. Lions -4.5. They're playing against 9. And me thinking, all right, they played against the Lions last week. Defense didn't play to the capability that I thought they were playing the past couple of weeks. So it was a good bounce back spot coming back at home. They always play better at home. And man, 9 just tore them up. Defense is terrible again. It's mainly the secondary, but still not even being able to get a ton of pressure onto JJ McCarthy. That whole game was really hard to watch. But I'll hop into that whenever I get into the recap, talk specifically about that game. But betting wise, it's been good, as far as units speaking. Let's see. For the month, I'm up 10 units. So I've had pretty much a positive day every single day this month, with the exception of three days. And for the past week. And for those of you who are wondering, how do I track this stuff and everything, I use this app called Pickit. I'm actually going to put the link in my description if you want a referral code. I love it. There's a free version, which you can use, test out. That's what I did. And then there's also a paid version. I believe it's $200 a year. But especially if you're betting a decent amount, I've almost paid for my whole next year's subscription so far this year. Just and me track it, just like anything you do. Track your wins, track your losses, how much you're making, how much are in each book that you or app that you're using. They recently added a Kalshi integration, which is awesome. And just because I have some of my bets on Kalshi, and it's a good way just to track kind of how much funds you have, how much you're winning, how much you're losing. Big fan of that. So I'll leave it in the description for you guys to check it out. Highly recommend it. I know the bet stamps out there as well. I personally use Pickit just because it works with a lot of the apps, the sweepstakes apps, sportsbook apps, or betting exchanges that I use, sports exchanges. But so far this past week, let's see. Yeah, I went 22-11, up, yes, 7.4 units. So it's one of my best weeks so far this year. I might even be my best week. And then yesterday I went positive as well, 2-1. So not looking too bad. Yeah, you can go ahead and give me a follow. I'm Nico on Pickit if you are already the Pickit app. But let's go over. We had a great slate on starting with Thursday night football. I don't think much to say about that. And at Tampa Bay, the line I believe 5.5, which I could understand. I think I might have gotten the Falcons at like it went up to even 6. Excuse me. But for most of the week, I think it was 5.5. And of course, you have everyone's big on Baker Mayfield. They're playing at home against a struggling Falcons team, which with Kirk Cousins hasn't looked great yet. Obviously, Michael Penix out for the year. So you have Kirk O'Chains to take over the offense. Of course, they have Bijan Robinson. He's a force in the league. But Drake London out, no reliable receivers, I would say. Mooney kind of dealing with injuries, and I think he might have left that Thursday night game with an injury as well. And then, Kyle Pitts, and we'll talk about it, especially if you have Kyle Pitts or played against Kyle Pitts in fantasy. Man, that was a legacy game he had. I guess I will go ahead and go into it, but I believe he had 3 touchdowns. I want to say like 150 receiving yards. Hold on, I'm just pulling it up right now. Actually, I'm not going to pull it up on my computer because it's going to make my computer slow. I'll pull it up on my phone real quick. It's a lot faster too. Yeah, dude. 11 receptions, 166 yards, averaged 15 yards per catch, 3 touchdowns, 12 targets. And that resulted in like 45 or 46 points in fantasy. If you had him, like, awesome. If you played against him, I feel bad for you. Probably lost the first round of playoffs, just starting with Thursday Night Football. Just ridiculous game, legacy game from Kyle Pitts. Everyone was always talking high about this guy. And he just never kind of panned out until this is like the best game he's ever had in his career, which I believe he's been in the league 3 or 4 years. But I was on the Falcons side +6. And the reasons for that, I can't remember if I said this last week. I think the Baker Mayfield hype. I love Baker Mayfield. I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. But so far this season, he's been pretty good. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries. And if any of you know Baker Mayfield, he can be very streaky sometimes. He have a very hot streak where he's just kind of like slinging it back and forth. And then, because he's slinging it back and forth all the time, there's a pick or two there. Sometimes a little bit of reckless plays. So he's like you kind of take he's double-edged sword in that sense. And then Mike Evans, you got back, which was huge for them. I picked him up off the waiver wire last week just to stash him, and I'm probably going to use him this week. Ended up scoring 19 points. I believe he had 5 or 6 receptions. I think close to over 100 yards or close to it. No touchdowns. And he looked pretty good. Had one scary fall, but he should be okay. The offense looked good. The biggest issue I had with the Bucs is their defense. I've had a lot of defensive injuries, and I've kind of seen that. In Atlanta, being able to run the ball, Bijan had a great game. I was playing against a guy who had Bijan, and he scored like almost 30 points, 29 points, I think. And he just kind of went off, did his thing he normally does, gets big breakaway runs, scored a touchdown. And then, of course, he's always deadly in the passing game as well. And even without Drake London, Kirk Cousins had a pretty good game. He didn't throw any picks and was able to set it up for a last-second, I believe, touchdown or field goal to win the game. And that's not good news for the Bucs, with that loss, Carolina has the tiebreaker over them, I believe. But then Carolina ended up losing against the Saints. So that division's kind of obviously the worst division in the NFC by far. But now the Bucs are back on top, I believe, with Carolina's loss. But yeah, like I said, Bucs, a little bit volatile, and honestly, this Atlanta team, very poor coaching for most of the season, but they kind of got the best of it this week. And their defensive front, they sacked Baker Mayfield. Let me see, they sacked him 5 times, versus Kirk Cousins, he got sacked 1 time. So that obviously plays a big difference. Bucky Irving back for the Tampa Bay, but wasn't able to gain a ton of traction. 16 carries, only 60 yards. Falcons game to play, and with these divisional games, it's they always make things interesting. that's my thoughts on Thursday night football. Hopefully you tailed me and tailed the Falcons, because that was there was always in the game, because like I said, the Bucs defense isn't that good. All right, moving on to a couple other games. We're not going to go through the whole slate necessarily, but some big games starting up on Sunday in the morning slate. We had Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium playing against LA Chargers. Justin Herbert with a fractured left hand. And honestly, their offense not looking really good. Their defense has kind of come to play in a lot of their games, but the offense not so much. And you have Dicker the kicker, who's kind of winning them games at the moment, which if you have him in fantasy, he scored 24 points as well. So you got to love it. But this line was just like the Kansas City lines the past 3 weeks. And I bet against Kansas City for the past 3 weeks straight, and I've cashed all of them. Some of them betting multiple times this past couple weeks. People just keep on betting the Chiefs, and I don't know why. I can understand if the line's like, honestly, with how Kansas City has been playing the past several weeks, and I know the Chargers by far aren't the best team in the world. They have a good defense. You saw that against Philly, but you can clearly see that their offense is kind of lacking as well with their past several games, with exception of the Raiders, because the Raiders are just flat out terrible, worst team in the league. And Chiefs have a good defense, but how do you have Kansas City at a -5.5 line for most of the week? They always get game day money because everyone's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is going to bounce back. Everyone's a Chris Collinsworth loving Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is awesome. But this year, I don't care how good of a quarterback you are, unless you're like Josh Allen. But even Josh Allen with this line that the Chiefs have out right now is not going to perform. You have the best quarterback in the world, and Patrick Mahomes, of course, is dealing with that left knee injury, which we'll talk about, which unfortunately he ended up tearing his ACL, and he's done for the year. They have, I believe, 3 starting linemen out. The backup ended up getting hurt as well in the last game. So you're just like in shambles from the offensive front perspective. They haven't really had a run game all year except for short runs. And the receiving core has been okay, but they've kind of been getting lit up recently. And laying 5.5, I know it's at Arrowhead. I know people talking about Patrick Mahomes this, Patrick Mahomes that, but that's in the past. You know, that happened last season. That happened many seasons ago. You got to look at each game and a single iteration with the season kind of as its own. You can't look at what they did last season because that doesn't pertain to what's happening right now. And what's happening right now is Chiefs have really good defense. Line is battered. So, you know, the Chargers are pretty good defensive front. You know, they're able to get some pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and you clearly saw that. You know, and their secondary is good. They have a great linebacking core led by Khalil Mack. So what do you expect? Like, Kansas is not going to be able to move the ball. And that's exactly what happened. And then Butker, he didn't miss a field goal, but you have, if you're going to pick Butker versus Dicker, the kicker, obviously I'm going to take Dicker. But just laying 5.5 at home, it literally got up to 6.5, which I bet 6 early on in the week. I bet 6.5 earlier on in the week because I saw it in like -115. And then I doubled down and bet 6.5 again because it was still there. And I was just utterly surprised. And they won outright, you know, the Chargers did. So, yeah, the Chiefs are done for the year. They're out of playoff contention. And Patrick Mahomes is out for the year with a torn ACL, unfortunately. Hopefully he comes back. But bless your heart if you've been betting the Chiefs for the past like 3 weeks because I've cashed betting against them. I know I've said in the past you might not bet on Patrick Mahomes, but you never bet against him. That's obviously different this year. I cashed on the Cowboys, I cashed on the Texans, and I cashed on the Chargers. And they're going to be priced accordingly. So I'm probably not going to bet either for or against them probably for the rest of the year. But it's unfortunate. They're done. Him and Mahomes, or the Chiefs and Mahomes. And the Chiefs have a lot of off-season moves that they need to make. Like, obviously the line has been in shambles. I think they'll get healthier on that front. So I think they'll be okay on that end. But they need to get more offensive weapons. Like, how much longer can Travis Kelce obviously took a big dump this year, just production wise. He had so many bad, like, dropped passes last week against Houston and didn't do a whole lot today. Honestly, Gardner Minshew was targeting him more than Mahomes did in the last like 2 minutes than the rest of the game. So they have a lot of stuff they need to do. They have some pieces on the offensive end, but Rashee Rice being your number one receiver, is that really going to do it for you? Like, Xavier Worthy is a great deep threat. I think one of the biggest things they need to get a running back as well. Maybe even upgrade their offensive line because they're not getting much on the run. Their defense is really good, and their defense has always been good under Spags. But their offense needs to do something, and Patrick Mahomes is there for the long term. I've been putting things out that if Dallas could do it, somehow get Patrick Mahomes, I know I was looking at their contracts and stuff, and that's probably like very, very, very unlikely. They probably have I think they both Dak and Mahomes have no trade clauses in their contracts. But if you're Kansas City, you get Dak, you get like a pick or two, how do you say no to that? If it's available, and if there's even a sense of interest from Patrick Mahomes, I think the Cowboys should shoot for it, because he's a franchise quarterback. But the Chiefs have a lot of self-reflecting to do and a lot of upgrading they need to do if they want to be back in the hunts for not only the playoffs, but to win championships, because this core isn't going to cut it. So another game I also bet, I bet early on in the week, and I kind of doubled down a little bit, was the Pats against Josh Allen. Drake May and the Pats against Josh Allen and the Bills in Foxborough. I honestly thought the Pats should be favored in this game. It was a coin flip game, I will say that. But I thought the Pats should have been favored. They were slight underdogs. I believe the line was like 1.5 in favor of Buffalo, which I get it. The Bills have been playing great recently. Kind of see what Cincy is. That win doesn't look as good last week after what the Ravens did to the Bengals this past Sunday. But, Josh Allen is really good, and he has a case for the MVP. I don't think he's necessarily going to win the MVP. I think Stafford's going to win the MVP. But you never know the past 3 weeks that we have. The one thing for the Bills is they can't stop the run. Yeah. And they're very much in love with running the ball. And granted, I know you have James Cook, but Buffalo plays its best football whenever they're behind, unfortunately, when Josh Allen gets to be Josh Allen and sling it and run for 20, 30 yards at a time. So you have the Pats that were up 21 points at halftime, and it was all Pats the first half, all Pats. I believe the Bills just scored 7 points, 1 touchdown at the very end of the second quarter going into halftime. And it was looking all Pats. So my Pats money line bets, bet them early on in the week, like I said, like minus 104, 103. And then I got them at plus money at like plus 125. And there's the tale of two halves, like my guy Rob Pizzola was saying. And totally different teams in the second half. The Bills came out, obviously down 21 points. Josh Allen, like I said, the Bills and Josh Allen play a lot better when they're coming back from behind, which is because they're not running the ball as much. They're letting Josh Allen be Josh Allen. And they come back, and I believe, Pats only score 1 field goal, I want to say the whole second half, and kind of not necessarily fell apart per se, but it did not look good. I think I still was on the right side of that. It was a close game. It was a coin flip game, and it was all Pats early on, and they just couldn't seal the deal. So you take it. You take your losses like a champ. And like I said, I thought I was still on the right side of that. It just the result isn't always indicative of everything. So coming off of a bye, I was thinking the Pats were going to win. They drop. That would have been they were on a 10-game winning streak, so there would have been 11 games in a row. And the Pats are currently at 10-3, I believe. And Buffalo's 10-4, and divisional game. So both Miami and the Jets being eliminated, they're in a race for one another. And I believe they have the series split between the two. Let me see. Yeah, because I want to say the Pats won in Buffalo. Yep, in October. And so that, yeah. And Buffalo's just one game away. It'll be interesting to see who wins that conference, but also they're trying to win the number 1 overall seed. But at this point, maybe the Broncos might, seeing their schedule coming up. But the Pats, they play at Baltimore, and that's a huge game, I think, for both teams. You know, Patriots trying to win the division and also get the number 1 overall seed. And the Ravens just trying to make the playoffs, especially with the Steelers winning against the Dolphins. So you have the Pats currently have the Ravens next on Sunday Night Football, and then they play the Jets, and then they play the Dolphins. So Ravens going to be a tough one. The next 2 games are going to be pretty easy, almost cakewalks. And let's see who Buffalo has. Yeah, Buffalo, similar-ish schedule. They play the Browns, which the Browns have been looking like the Browns. But it is in Cleveland, so you never know. They did, like, the Bills did lose to the Dolphins. And then they play the Eagles in Buffalo next week. And then their last game of the season is against the Jets. So that Philly game could be interesting. It'll be a game to watch, but I think they'll definitely take care of business in Cleveland. But you never mess around with Cleveland, especially in Cleveland. Shadur could come out. Bills' defense isn't as strong as you would like. They're susceptible to the run, and Cleveland loves to run the ball. But, you know, the Browns could always cause issues, you know, against teams. So that is the Pats Bills game. Broncos, they sneak by yet again. I don't know how many games. I want to say, like, so they're currently 12-2, I believe. I want to say all except for like 2 or 3 of the games have been single score games. Let me look that up real quick. They escaped yet again. Granted, I will say I still refuse to believe that the Broncos are a Super Bowl contending team this year with Bo Nix as their quarterback, just because granted, he's proving me wrong. He played great against the Packers, made all the throws that he needed to, but I feel like his receivers have just been wide open for some reason. It's like, if you can get pressure on Nix, you can force him into mistakes because he never likes to take sacks. He says that all the time, so that could cause him to throw arid throws. And I think their defense is really good, don't get me wrong, but I think they're kind of averaging out a little bit, as you can see. Granted, the Packers have a really good offense, one of the best in the league, and they're able to put points up against the Broncos, you know, in Denver. But at the same time, like, Denver just matched them right back, and they got down the field very easily. So let me look at Denver's schedule. And again, they won by a single possession, 8 points. They won by 8 points against the Titans week 1. Lost by 1 point against the Colts. Lost by 3 points against the Chargers, which that will be an interesting race, Broncos versus Chargers, because the Chargers are still in it for that division. And I bet, Spencer, I'm really rooting for the Chargers. And I think they have a good chance. I was hoping that they would lose this game, and I genuinely thought they were going to lose this game, I actually did take Green Bay money line. And that was looking good for a lot of the game, but Broncos always find a way to squeak it out. That's what I've been saying all year. But they lose to the Chargers by 3. They beat the Bengals by 25. Okay, so there's 1. Beat the Eagles by 4 points. Then the next week, they beat the Jets by 2 points. And then they beat the Giants by 1 point. So far, they only have 1 double-digit win so far going through their schedule. They beat, of course, the Cowboys by 22, so that's 2. They beat the Texans by 3 points. They beat the Raiders by 3 points. They beat the Chiefs by 3 points. They beat the Commanders by 1 point. They beat the Raiders by 7 points. And then they beat the Packers by 2 points, or 8 points, sorry. So they only have two of their wins out of 12 have been more than a single score. Just remember that. They should have all honestly lost a lot of those games. So I kind of think they're like the Chiefs of this year. They just squeak out. And granted, their schedule, other than, I guess, now the Chiefs, since Patrick Mahomes is out, but you can't ever rule the Chiefs out. Especially, I don't trust this Broncos offense yet. I know Bo Nix has been proving me wrong and maybe continues to prove me wrong. With their defense averaging out as well, I still think they can lose a game or two. I think so. Next week they play the Jags, and that's not an easy game. Trevor Lawrence is playing well. I don't think the Jags defense is very good, or not as good as the teams they've been playing against, But I think that'll be a good game. Denver's only favored by 3. Depending on what the line is, I'd be inclined to take Jacksonville because I can't trust the Broncos to win by margin on a lot of the games. And they could straight up lose this game. Jags have been playing really well. Trevor Lawrence playing really well as well. And then they play the Chiefs the next game in Arrowhead. Granted, like I said, Patrick Mahomes is out. So they're going to have Gardner Minshew, but defense still really good. It'll be interesting to see who they have, if they have any injuries on that end. It'll be interesting to see what their starting line looks like, because that could be a mess with the Broncos pass rush against the battered Chiefs offensive line. But they barely escaped the Chiefs. Granted, it was with Patrick Mahomes in Denver. They play at Arrowhead. I would be inclined to maybe bet the Chiefs on that one, depending on what the line is. Like, if the Broncos, they're probably going to get like -4.5, even -5.5. Like, if Broncos take money like 5.5, like, I'd be inclined to take the Chiefs there. They know their season's over. They would love to wreck it for the Broncos. And then they play the Chargers the last game of the season in Denver, and that's going to be a tough game. Chargers are a pretty good team. They're not the best team in the world, but also don't think the Broncos are the best team in the league either. So I think that will be a good game, and the Chargers are very alive that game. So Chargers still in it with the division. Broncos are obviously vying to keep that division as theirs, and then also to solidify the number 1 overall seed, especially with the Pats losing. But the playoff race is becoming very interesting. NFC is still a gauntlet, and we're going to talk about that next with the masterclass from the Rams and Stafford over the Lions. And key injuries, you have Devontae Adams going down with a hamstring injury, which did not look good. I say he's probably doubtful to play against Seattle. I want to say they're playing Thursday night, so I do not expect Devontae Adams to come back from injury in time for Thursday Night Football. I could be wrong, but that hamstring injuries, they always linger. They're never good, so I don't think he's going to come back. Puka Nacua went out supposedly with like cramps or something. I think he'll probably be back, but it'll be interesting. The Seattle defense is really good. You saw the gauntlet of a game we saw in LA the last time. And I think it's going to be another good game. It would be interesting to see what the line is. I think Stafford's going to continue playing well. He played great against the Lions, and granted, the Lions' defense isn't as up to par as, say, Seattle's defense. But I think also Seattle's defense kind of averaging out a little bit as well. But again, I took the over in that game. I was picking between either the Rams spread, it was like -5.5, or the over. And for me, I didn't trust the Lions defense. I knew they were going to score. They have a powerhouse offense. I just don't really know how good that Rams defense is. And I knew this Rams offense is a juggernaut. So I picked the over 54.5. It cleared that very easily. And yeah, honestly, if you did both, you hit on both the Rams spread and the over. So hopefully you won one of those, if not both. And then lastly, recap. 9 takes over Dallas. Man, that was a rough game to watch. Like I mentioned, I was positive for the day. Going to Sunday Night Football, I was going to watch it anyway because it's the Cowboys playing. They're at home versus 9. Oh, man. -4.5. The Cowboys always play better at home. I thought their defense was going to be better, Obviously, they're playing against the Lions last week, and the Lions are a really good offense. So I don't think there was much to take away there as far as a big regression in their defense, but I clearly saw it against the Vikings. The Vikings are not good offensively. Yeah, they have Justin Jefferson and all that, but J.J. McCarthy has looked horrible. He looked good against last week, but it was against the Browns. They shut him out. I can't remember if it was the Browns or not. But just honestly didn't look that great. And they come out slinging. Obviously, the secondary is an issue for Dallas. So that's the clear thing that Dallas needs to improve on is drafting good corners, safeties, maybe bulk up that defensive line a little bit, get some more pressure on. The offense played okay. You had Aubrey missing a couple field goals, which kind of hurt you, and couldn't punch into the end zone when you needed it to. But I give credit to the Minnesota defense. They're a pretty good defense. So it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota plays throughout the year because they're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs as of last week. It'll be interesting to see if J.J. McCarthy's their guy or they need to look for someone else because they have the veterans on the team. They have Justin Jefferson. I wouldn't say Justin Jefferson's entirely happy right now. He's seeing the career years that JSN is having, Devontae, Puka, these guys with pretty good quarterbacks are having, and he's in that caliber of receiver, but he just doesn't have the quarterback to get him the ball. So it'll be interesting to see if he wants to stick around in Minnesota. If J.J. McCarthy isn't really showing a ton of promise still. But that was a very disappointing game, nonetheless. I will probably not be betting any more Dallas games, especially with their schedule coming up. They're essentially, I think they have a 1% chance to make the playoffs, but they're essentially out of the playoffs. And I agree with that. I think they should start preparing for next year. And I'd say fire Eberflus. He's done a terrible job on managing that defense and draft some secondary players in the draft as well as the offense is fine. George didn't have a great game again, but George is going to be a streaky guy. That's why you have CD there to be kind of the core number one guy. And then if George is hot, then pause, ride him. All right, and now we're going to go to a little bit of college basketball. And this is kind of like college football, college basketball mixed up because college football is honestly kind of dead. And I'll talk about that in kind of our preview section. But I want to share a clip of what this guy, Joel Klatt, which I believe he's some sort of analyst for college football or something. Let me pull up his X account. Yeah, college football guy. Yeah, so here he is, Fox Sports college football analyst. He has a show, but he said this egregious thing about the NCAA tournament.
Or James Madison to be competitive this weekend? Is it sort of the future of an auto bid for the G5 at stake?
That it it will be determined.
Let me see where I can find. She's basically kind of comparing like this college football playoffs, and everyone's really upset, of course, with like JMU and Tulane kind of getting in over like these other teams, more deserving, whatever. That's the way they set it up. It kind of sucks, but I think the college football playoff is flawed very much. I think all of college football is flawed a lot. I think just college sports in general with NIL, I do agree that is a good thing that players getting paid. I think it's also kind of destroyed a lot of programs' cultures, as well as essentially everyone's just on a guaranteed like 1 year deal. And you can't really build a program that way. It's hard to get guys to buy in. You hear coaches all the time say first thing they do whenever they have a recruiting visit with a kid that they're potentially wanting that kid to come to their school and play is like, how much money am I going to get paid? Like, am I guaranteed a starting spot, or am I going to battle it out against anyone for that starting spot, whether it be football or basketball? Same conversations are going on with both. And it's kind of sad, that it's kind of taken into this direction. I think eventually what they're going to have to do is implement contracts to an extent that way there's legal obligation on both sides, from the school as well as the player, that, hey, I agree to stay at the school for 1 year for X amount of dollars, or 2 years or 3 years, or whatever the agreement is. And then in there also have like transfer rules. It's like, hey, I can transfer like one time during this time period or whatever. And then also like, I think incentives for like playing and stuff. Cause it's tough when you have these guys who get paid millions of dollars and they don't pan out, they don't play well, and they kind of get benched or whatever. It also puts pressure on the program as well. You have these players making millions of dollars, and if they're not playing up to expectations of kind of what their NIL evaluation was worth, then it's like, you have these boosters kind of saying like, all right, you still have to play the guy because we're paying him all this money. And if he's not performing or doing anything, like, it's just wasting money. So like, play him, even though he might not be the best guy for the job at the time based off of performance. So yeah, there's a lot of issues and messes, but this is what I'm going to try to find the clip of what he talked about the NCAA tournament when complaining about the college football playoff, how it's currently formatted.
By Floyd antitrust litigation, Final Four.
They did.
Of all takes that I've ever come for a Cinderella. Nobody can. It will be determined by finances and litigation. And the reason the group of five is included in this playoff is to avoid antitrust litigation. That's it, guys. Like, we're not looking for a Cinderella, the equivalent of George Mason.
Lane or James Madison to be competitive this weekend? Is it sort of the future of an auto bid for the G5 at stake for them to look the part this weekend?
I don't think that it matters. It would help in the sentiment, the public sentiment, but these things are going to be, it will be determined by.
Okay, maybe not. Let me fast forward.
Didn't George Mason go to the Final Four or
they
something
did,
like
yes.
that? Nobody cares in football about that. We don't. The hottest of all takes that I've ever had in my entire life. The NCAA basketball tournament is a joke. It's the dumbest tournament and the least fair tournament in all of sports. We go and we put teams at odd times on neutral sites in a 1-game affair. Like, that doesn't crown a true champion. We're not doing anything that tells us who's the best team over the course of the entire season. Like, if anything, the NCAA basketball tournament should act exactly like the old World Cup, which we should have groups. They should all get guaranteed 3 games, and they should be played at the higher seeds arena so that those seeds are rewarded for a quality game. And that way we don't just get to see, like, Kentucky one and done against George Mason or something like that. Well, that's stupid. That's stupid. Again, hot.
Yeah. We'll just take him off the screen for that outrageous take that he had. But I don't know if he's trying to rage bait. If he's trying to rage bait, he's doing a really good job of it. But that is probably like one of the worst takes I've ever seen in all sports. As far as like And I'm sure he's probably saying college football, like that's what he's also saying is like college football playoff is not like perfect either. But the fact that you say like this is like the worst, not even saying like, hey, there can be changes made. Sure, I think the points that he made about like them being at random times at neutral sites. Well, the reason why they're at random times is you're trying to put 64 teams. So you're trying to put 32 games, and that's not including like the first four and the play-in to get to like the main 64 teams. There's 32 game matchups. You have 32 games that you need to play in a course of 2 days. And then subsequently, those teams who win play each other, and you have to do this all within like a month's time. So logistically, like I don't know how else he would do it. If he's suggesting like, oh, you got to play at like these times or whatever, it's like, what you're suggesting, like cutting the amount of teams, which is like we clearly see the issues that the college football playoff has with only allowing a certain amount of teams and not necessarily expanding it. Like that, you'd have the same issues with college basketball if you were to do that. And the fact that he's like, oh, no one wants to see Cinderellas. That's like literally what the NCAA tournament is all about, is watching these Cinderella teams. And at the end of the day, he's saying it's like not fair. You don't have a true champion. I'd argue the differ. Like if you're the best of the best, you'd be the team who's like, I don't care like what time, what place, who we going to have to play. We're going to win. That's the test. And that's what defines a true champion, not someone who's like, oh, I want to play at our home arena at this time against this opponent with all these preferential like parameters. And then like we will win. And that proves that we're the champion. But that's just not how it works, dude. Like if you're the champion, it doesn't matter what time, place. Like Zach Wilson made it famous whenever they went on that run with BYU his last year there. It's like name the time, place, anywhere, anytime, against anyone, we'll be there, we'll play. That's the mentality of a championship, not what this bozo's talking about right here. And man, and he's been getting lit up, which, yeah, in all fairness, he should get lit up because the NCAA tournament is probably the best postseason format for any league, professional, amateur, NCAA ever. And we'll get into the like, I think college football specifically, like I talked about all the issues that the NCAA is having specifically with like basketball and football with all this NIL issues and players and stuff and whatnot. But I think the postseason, college football playoff or college football postseason, whether you're in the playoffs or not, is dying. And it's like, it kind of sucks right now, and you can expand it. I think that'll make it better, but we'll kind of get into. Actually, let me just get into it right now. So I think his take is horrible. Everyone wants to see Cinderellas, and at the end of the day, the champion's gonna beat whoever, wherever, whatever time. The whole like grouping and staging, like that works as soccer. It doesn't work with basketball, and that's also the reason why like basketball, as far as a postseason perspective, is as far as college, is way better than the college football playoff, is because with football, you have the limitations. You only can play one game per week. In basketball, you play multiple games per week. And the more games you play, the faster paced the games are, the better outcome and product you're going to have. Just because the way basketball is played, you score a lot more points. There's less variance, One team has a really hot shooting night, they could upset another team. And momentum is super huge in basketball, especially since you play so many games in such a short amount of period of time. Like you play one game in football and you wait a whole nother week, like that momentum kind of dies off. Whereas in basketball, you play on a Monday and your next game's on a Wednesday, you can carry that momentum. You can carry that hot shooting with you. And I think that's the beauty of basketball. There's a lot more variability. And I'd say football, almost always the better team wins. Basketball, not always the better team wins, but that's the beauty of the sport. That's why everyone loves, other than the NCAA tournament, because I'm biased towards basketball, for professional reasons, the best postseason format is the NHL. And the reason for that is the best team does not necessarily always win. It's because NHL and hockey has the most variability as far as who could potentially win a game. Just because of the fast-paced nature, how quickly goals can be scored. And that's why you have different champions every single year. And you have these number one seeds who are like the Boston Bruins, for example. They won like the President's Cup as well. I think the New York Rangers the past couple of years as well. Those two teams, like very rarely do the teams that won the President's Cup, basically the best team in the league in the regular season, ever go to win the Stanley Cup. Just because they're postseason is all different. Momentum changes, and that's the beauty of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's why it is the best professional postseason format and postseason in ever, and it will continue to be that way. So taking a step off the break of roasting this guy, Joel Klatt, clapping his cheeks, pause. We have an issue with the college football postseason, and it incorporates the college football playoff. I think obviously everyone believes it should be expanded to 16 teams. I hope eventually, and it gets expanded to 32 teams. I don't know if that will ever happen because of the issues like I mentioned earlier. Football is played once a week. I don't think you could play that many games. You'd have to take games off schedule. I think college football is like not in a very good place right now just because it's very political because of the number of teams available in the playoff. There's always going to be bias. This team should have got in over that team. I think they should do some sort of similar format to the NCAA tournament where you have kind of like first four in, first four out. And then you have like the first four in, or like they play each other in a play-in to actually make the actual tournament. I think they need to incorporate something like that. That would have solved the big issue, the controversy this year. Be like, oh, BYU should have been in, Texas should have been in, Alabama shouldn't have made it, Notre Dame should have been in. Like, cool, just you should have done the first four out. They play each other, and then those are the final two teams to additionally make it to the actual playoff. But I'm going to specifically talk about there's a post I saw about bowl games. And granted, bowl games haven't necessarily happened yet, but there was actually a bowl game this past week, which I thought was pretty crazy. Like, I feel like bowl games are, I guess it is bowl season, and bowl games are essentially dead right now, and I'll show you why. Right here. This happened in LA in SoFi. It was University of Washington versus Boise State, first bowl game of the year. This guy's basically telling the truth. Bulls have been killed. And it's really a shame because anyone about football, college football, all they care about is making the playoffs. You don't make the playoffs. You have these teams like opting out of these bowl games, cowardly like Notre Dame. There's that famous meme where it's like they have their signs like "play like a champion," and then it says "play like a champion" unless you like don't get in, and then you just quit. Like they did this year. I would love to see a Notre Dame versus BYU bowl game. BYU didn't make the playoffs, and I don't think they were deserving of making the playoffs, but they can really make a statement with their bowl game, and I think that's what it's all about. These bowl games, kind of making a statement. Like, sure, the end of the season might have not ended how you would like, but you have this opportunity for your seniors, for your program, for your fans to really prove something by playing someone, and it's non-conference. I'm all for these non-conference games, and I think that's one of the big reasons why I think college football is they're just not doing it right. Like, the thing that college basketball does so well is you have all these great non-conference games before conference play begins. Granted, this goes back to the whole dilemma. Basketball plays way more games than football. Football plays like 12 games a year. But as far as college basketball, they play like 30 plus games. And I understand that. And it's just the nature of the sports, but you have to have some good non-conference games, like these cupcake games where, granted, basketball has them too. I get it, but have one or two like really good non-conference games. I think they need to get rid of these huge conferences where, honestly, like the Big Ten, like the good teams don't even play the other good teams in the same conference. Like Ohio State's only good matchup during the year is always just Michigan, and then they play all these bottom feeders, Big Ten schools. They purposely do it like that because the whole system is just messed up. And then you're just rewarding these teams to like play like not very good matchups, and it's more about, oh, you didn't lose as many games versus we beat these teams. It's just a messed up system versus I think the NCAA tournament is the total opposite. They take into account like your wins, like quality wins. I think they need to go to the quad system. If you don't know the quadrant system, there's 4 different quadrants of depending on how each team the opponent is ranked and whether it's home versus away. It will rank out based off of quadrants, and everyone's always vying for quad 1 wins because that basically builds your NCAA tournament resume to get in, and everyone wants as many of those as possible. So these teams will go out of their way to schedule really tough games, whether it be in away environments or neutral sites against these top teams, because they want to build their resume. College football is the opposite. College football, they want to run away from all the good teams and like, oh, it's just like play the easiest teams we can. We'll play like 1 or 2 like tough teams in conference play because we're a part of these huge conferences, and maybe we'll play 1 or 2 of these really good teams, and then we'll get into the playoffs because we're like 10-1 or 10-2 or 11-1, and it's just the whole system's messed up. But you have like bowl games are basically being destroyed because no one cares about them anymore. You have all these players opting out of the bowl games, which is really sad. And bowl games are dead, and I think the college football playoff killed it. And scheduling needs to get changed. A lot of stuff needs to get changed with college football. And it's very unfortunate. I think they need to get rid of these giant conferences. I think if you ever watched the clip of John Gruden, kind of how he would do the college football playoff, I think that's something similar to that is very good and should be implemented. I don't know if they'll necessarily break up these conferences because there's so much money involved with these TV deals with these conferences. So that might be a little bit of a challenge. But ideally, you have the conferences broken up into smaller divisions, and you play the teams in your division twice, one at home, one away. I think that gives for more of a rivalry sense. Because imagine if say BYU and Utah, they're in the same division. They play each other twice. They play 1 game in Provo, 1 game in Salt Lake. That would be awesome. I would love to see that. Same with the game, you play 1 game in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, and you play 1 game in Columbus. I think that would be awesome. I think they need to do something like that. That way you can truly see kind of who is worthy of winning the division or whatever. Gives you good quality wins, plays against tougher teams. Something along those lines, because these huge conferences aren't going to do it. Even in the SEC, I think the SEC is still by far the best college football conference in the nation, but it's not as by big of a margin as people think. It's not Big Ten is very close behind. Big 12 is not far behind Big 10 in my opinion. It's just very top heavy. You have these really good SEC teams who, honestly, if you had Missouri play BYU, I think BYU would win that game convincingly. Missouri, I don't think is that good of a team. Stuff like that. And I think you just need better non-conference games, more competition. I love these in college basketball. You have the ACC, SEC challenge. You have the Big 12 ACC challenge that they do. They need to do more stuff like that. Incentivize it. I love how this player era tournament in college basketball, they're paying these teams millions of dollars to come to Vegas and play against top teams. And who's going to turn that down, and then they get a really good product. You have, if you have 5 or 6 top 25 teams coming to this tournament, they're all playing each other. I think that's awesome. That would never happen in college football the way it's structured right now. And that's very unfortunate. People want to see good games. They don't want to see Texas smacking the crap out of UTEP or not even that. Like they didn't even like smack them as much as they should have, or playing like Sam Houston State. Like no one wants to see that. So put out a better product. That's the solution for college football. Sorry, I went on my rant right there. Let me just respond to this one person, and I will be wrapping up with NBA and then maybe some look ahead spots for next week. Okay. All right. NBA. Wow, I'm already sitting at almost an hour right now. But we have the Cup Finals tonight. My Orlando Magic unfortunately fell to the Knicks. I think Magic were very much in that game. At times they were controlling the game, but the Knicks just kind of came at them, running a fast break. The Knicks are just the better team. They have the better player in Jalen Brunson and Cat, So you have the Spurs beating the Thunder, and it's actually surprising right now. Maybe I'm just a square, but the fact that the Spurs are underdogs in this game, they literally beat the 24 at that time 24-1 OKC Thunder, and it was a back and forth game, but clearly the presence of Wemby changes the whole game. Like having a 7'4", 7'5" guy in the paint that can not only play defense but can score for you changes the game entirely. And especially for the Knicks, I think that's going to be a problem. Like, who's going to guard Wemby? Like, Cat's going to guard Wemby? I guess so. Mitchell Robinson, I think he's kind of essentially neutralized. I don't even know if he can play Mitchell Robinson going against Wemby, because he has to guard him out in the perimeter, and that's the whole reason why Mitchell Robinson is out there, is to block shots and get rebounds, So, yeah, it will be very interesting. I think I'm definitely going to be probably betting the Spurs in some capacity, whether money line or spread. I believe this line is like 3 right now, which I think is probably more of a pick 'em, but we'll see what the injury report looks like. But the Spurs take down the Thunder. Somewhat controversial ending with Caruso potentially getting fouled. You say it was a foul or whatnot. At the end of the day, it's controversial. I think it could have gone either way. I just didn't like how the Thunder were complaining, and I think that's a lot of feedback of what people see in comments and posts is like, you have the team that constantly they finally get the other end of the stick. All season long they get all the calls, especially with SGA, and they get away with a lot of holding, a lot of pushing. There are several plays where Wemby, on the one step back jumper, he got fouled 2 or 3 times, getting slapped at, and he still made the shot, no foul call. So I thought it was reffed relatively well. And during that game, you just hate to see the team that always gets away with the fouls and gets a lot of fouls called for them, and then whenever the game matters, then they start complaining about fouls. You just hate to see that. Just go out and play. So we have tonight the finals for the Emirates Cup is the Knicks versus the Spurs, and it'll be an interesting matchup. I think the Spurs are by far the superior team. I guess you could say the Knicks have the better core players. Like Jalen Brunson's a better guard than any of the Spurs guard. Wemby's a better big than any of the Spurs or Knicks bigs. But I think from a top down perspective, and granted, Spurs are going to play heavy minutes in this game, because a lot of money is on the line, but I think the Spurs are just the better team, top to bottom. I think they even have the better player in Wemby. So it'll be interesting to see if possibly on a minutes restriction. I don't think he really was. He played a lot, and even then, Luke Cornett playing in those backup minutes, I like the French vanilla combo, and Dylan Harper coming off the bench doing his thing. Yeah, I think that the Spurs are just a better team. They have the deeper bench. They have the best player in Wemby. So give me the Spurs. And I won't probably get into it, but the Wemby threw a little bit of shade, saying we played like the ethical basketball in his post-game interview against after the Thunder game, which I thought was pretty funny. And it'll be interesting. Is that going to be a rivalry for years to come? Because OKC kind of like champions last year, they're still very young, and then Spurs are up and coming. I think that'll be Western Conference Finals previews for years to come, which is going to be pretty interesting. Okay, preview. I talked about the Spurs versus the Knicks, so we don't have to go over that. I also talked about college football playoffs and how college football has ruined bowl season. I guess we'll hop into NFL preview. Let's see. Look ahead. You have some really good games. I'm not going to get into a ton of it right now just because my voice is kind of cooked. I've been talking for a long time and I got to do some other stuff. But Thursday Night Football is going to be great. Rams versus Seahawks. I kind of previewed that a little bit. Right now you have the Rams -1.5 favorites. Like I said, I don't think Devontae Adams is probably going to play. It's really short week, quick turnaround, coming off of what did not look like a good hamstring injury, which he's had issues with previously. I don't think he's going to come back. I think Puka will probably come back. But it'll be interesting to see because Seahawks offense have not looked good. Like them putting up like 16 points, whatever it was, 15 points against Indy. And Indy has a pretty decent defense, but you don't have no Sauce Gardner. I don't think DeForest Buckner was playing. You have like Phillip Rivers as their quarterback, so they're not necessarily like pushing the ball down the field. Like that is a cause for concern. Granted, this is in Seattle, which the last game, which was a close game, was in LA in SoFi. Right now, 44.5 the total. I would kind of lean the under, honestly. If not, take the Rams. But not having Devontae Adams is going to be a big hit. So if anything, maybe the better look would just be the under. All right. And then you got Packers Bears. This is going to be a good one. Right now, Packers favored by 1.5 points. It's going to be in Chicago at Soldier Field. There were talks about Romo Dunze. He kind of got hurt in pregame warmups last week, so he's kind of doubtful. He might not return for this game against the Packers. And then you also had who else? Someone also get a little bit banged up as well. Luther Burden, questionable with an ankle. So if they don't have one of those guys, that'd be a hit. If they don't have both, that's going to be a really big hit. You essentially just have DJ Moore as your as your receiver. And then against the Packers, the Packers have injuries in themselves. They had obviously Micah Parsons. That's the big one, torn ACL. Hate to see it. But they also have Christian Watson, which went down with a shoulder injury, which it didn't look good. So right now he's questionable. I don't really think he's going to come back for this game, but you have good backups to kind of fill the spot, but missing just another weapon on the Packers offense is not good. So I would lean Packers. I know the Bears this year have been very underrated, so it'll be interesting. I want to see where this line goes and to kind of like see where the receivers are at as far as their injuries, but that'll be a good game to watch. And then let's see. Excuse me. A couple other good games. Chargers Cowboys. Right now they have Dallas favored at -1.5. I don't see why Dallas would be favored in this game. I would take Chargers. I know Chargers offensive line is totally like in shambles right now, but the rest of their defense is really good. The Cowboys defense, I think, has definitely regressed. I don't think we'll really see a good Cowboys defense. Like their secondary, like I think Justin Herbert, it'll be interesting to see if Quentin Johnston's back. I want to say he was out last game. He's definitely questionable for this game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Guyton comes back. He says he's questionable, but yeah, not looking good for the Cowboys. So I would take Chargers this game, whether it be like money line or plus the points. And then Bucks Panthers, that'll be interesting game, divisional game. Basically, whoever wins this game, I think will probably win the division. Tampa Bay -3. They're playing in Carolina. I don't know. If that number goes up, I'd like to say the Panthers, but having Mike, yeah, I don't know about this guy. I would have to dig into it a little bit more. And then you have Patriots Ravens, which I talked about. I would like to take the Pats on this one. Lamar is still not playing very well, and Drake May, I think, will have a bounce back game. But it'll be interesting to see how much this line goes up right now. It's Baltimore -3. So if it gets 3.5, it's definitely like an auto, like Pat's buy, in my opinion. And then you have also Jags Broncos. This is going to be a really good game. Denver -3 right now, like I mentioned. I think Jacksonville can give the Broncos a scare, possibly. Maybe this is just me like rooting for the Broncos downfall, but Jacksonville's been playing very good. It's been mainly in the pass game, which I know Broncos pass rush is pretty good, but I think they're better of a run defense than a pass defense. So I think there's opportunities with Trevor Lawrence and his receiving core there. And yeah, there's some injuries. It'll be interesting to see what they do against Pat Surtain, because there's a lot of offensive options for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think Riley Moss is going to get targeted a lot, like he has been all year, and we'll see if he's kind of up to the test. But it'll be interesting to see what the Broncos offense is able to do against this Jacksonville defense, because I don't think the Jacksonville defense, I'm not convinced that they're like that good, but also I'm not convinced that the Broncos offense is that good as well. So it could be a high scoring game in this one. Line's at 45.5, which is high for a Broncos game. Okay, I think that's about it for this week. Yeah, if you have any questions or any recommendations, leave it to me in the comments, and yeah, we'll have clips coming out and continue trying to make this podcast better. So let me know how we can improve it. All right, catch y'all later. Bet responsibly, make some money this week, and catch you later.